Welcome in, everybody, to week number 12, the sectional championship week. My name is Jeff Mahoney with Summit City Sports. And as always, we have Casey O'Boyle with Northeast Indiana GameNight. And the sectional semifinal round was certainly intriguing. All of our teams were in it. It was a lot of action to follow on Friday. And Casey, I'm sure that you were glued to the TV. I thought you said that you made a trip out to Bishop Dwenger to Shields Field. How was your Friday last Friday?
It was cold, truthfully. I'm not used to that weather. I'm looking forward to some warmer weather this weekend. It's going to be gorgeous on Friday night. But sitting out, that was honestly, Jeff, the first time I've been to Shields Field to watch a game in the stands. I've been on the sideline, but I had not been up, and it's a beautiful, beautiful view. I mean, they did a fantastic job with that. A little shaky start, of course, for the Saints against Anderson, but then they settled in and jumped out to a big lead by halftime. So, but it was fun to be out. It was nice to be out and saw a lot of friends and talked a lot of high school football. But by the time the final whistle had blown, I was ready to get in the car and get the seats warmed up and head back and watch some more football at home. And I saw a lot of these games then late Friday night and then into Saturday, all day Saturday, and even a little bit on Sunday. So a lot of good football played last week, and even more, I think, upcoming this week.
Well, I'll tell you what, it should be warmer this Friday, and we're going to have a good one to start off. We're going to look at Class 6A, where Warsaw got the big victory over Carroll. Their rushing attack and their defense was able to fend off the high-powered Superchargers led by junior Jeffrey Becker, the quarterback. Warsaw won it 42-35. I know a lot of people were surprised by that, especially the Swami, who had picked Carroll to win that game. And Homestead was down early. Some big special teams play by Snyder, but Homestead, being their resilient self, came back and won it 28-10. So they handled business against the Snyder Panthers, and that is never an easy task.
No, I mean, when we saw Snyder jump out, the kick return by Tavarius Jones, and then the field goal 10-0, those scores were floating around town. I know everybody was thinking, oh, my mercy, here we go. We all knew that both teams were improved. That was one of the questions you asked me last week, Jeff, is which one is more improved? And it was hard to say which one was more improved. Through a quarter and a half, the answer was Snyder, and they were holding their own. And then I think attrition just kind of set in, and Snyder's inability to move the ball and come up with those signature big plays that they've had on some of their great teams of the past, that's been their bugaboo all year long, Jeff, is their inability to have explosive plays offensively. It caught up to them finally in the sectional semifinal, and the Panthers bowed out with a 5-5 record, which is very uncharacteristic of a Snyder, football team. But kudos to Homestead. They didn't panic. Braden Hardwick got injured, so they lost their leading ball carrier for the last 2 years, and that was a devastating loss. But they stayed the course, did the Spartans, and I think made just enough plays in the passing game, and some other guys unheralded stepped up and had decent nights running the ball. And again, the Spartans prevailed 28-10. We had them winning by 22 points, but it was a lot closer. It felt a lot closer than 18 points.
Well, another fantastic game for Evan Ormsby. And as you can see, Hardwick was on his way to another great performance, averaging 7.3 yards per carry before being taken out of the game. Ormsby at 132.1 QB rating, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Once again, Nate Anderson is just having an outstanding season, 7 catches, 113 yards. But it was the other receivers, Chambers, Kistler, and Sparrow catching the touchdown. So they are deep in the passing game.
Yeah, we certainly knew that going into the season. Those 4 guys that you just mentioned have been healthy all year long. They've had no issues in terms of the continuity in their receiving core, and it's really paid dividends because now Ormsby's, the timing's there. Coach Skelton's pass offense is all predicated on timing. They've got their routes down. They've got their timing down. Ormsby's playing like a seasoned veteran, and right now, with Hardwick being questionable for this game against Warsaw, I think that passing game is going to be even more important, and the weather, as you said, Jeff, is going to be beautiful. So it should play into Homestead's hands in this one.
Do you see a situation where Homestead turns back to Ryan Burton to get a few carries on the offensive side of the ball? Burton, 5 tackles and a tackle for loss. He's kind of that edge guy now for them that can put pressure on the offense in the backfield.
Yeah, he's a safety that they've kind of turned into a hybrid outside linebacker, but it's a fantastic question, Jeff, because remember a year ago when Hardwick went down late in the season, Ryan Burton was the guy that they turned to get some of those tough yards between the tackles, and he really did a phenomenal job, I thought, stepping up for his team in a tough situation and filling that role. They've got other guys certainly that can do it, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Hardwick's not able to play, if Ryan Burton is the guy going forward in terms of getting those tough yards between the tackles.
Yeah, and you see here with Nick Sudarth, 14 carries, 101 yards, averaging 7.2 with a touchdown against Northside. I know that was the game where Northside said, hey, we got to make some changes on defense, but certainly a capable running back here for the senior over at Homestead. Looking at Warsaw, it's not going to be as easy. Warsaw got it done with defense and running the ball, and obviously we've known this Homestead defense to be one of the best in the SAC in Northern Indiana. Do you expect Warsaw to have the same kind of success against Homestead as they did against Carroll?
I don't think so, just because I think Homestead is that much better defensively than Carroll is right now. Every big game, it seemed like Carroll's defense needed to step up. They struggled. Last week was another one. I thought they would perform better against a run-dominated team. It's, Bart Ball at Warsaw, where they pack it in. They run that triple option extremely well. I really thought after a couple of quarters of action, Carroll would settle in and perform a little bit better defensively. But my goodness, Warsaw ran all over them. I think a little over 500 yards rushing. That's just unbelievable. And then a few costly turnovers really hurt the Chargers late. And I think there was at least 4 or 5 turnovers for Carroll. They still only lost that game, as you said, by 1 score. So they were right there. But to answer your question, I think Homestead is a better matchup. I really like their linebackers. Luke Palmer is fantastic, an all-state player from a year ago. I really expect the Homestead Spartans defense to be able to handle Warsaw's ground game a little better. But, make no mistake, they have to win first down. That's what Coach Chad Zolman told me this week. If we don't win first down, we're in trouble. If they're facing, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, it's going to be a long night for the Spartans, just like it was for Carroll a week ago. But I fully expect those linebackers, including Ryan Burton, Cole Etchison, those kind of guys to get off the edge, get off blocks, and make some big tackles early on in each series to turn, 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8, things like that. Try to get Homestead a little bit behind the sticks, Warsaw a little behind the sticks, and make them do things they don't want to do.
Yeah, Luke Palmer with another 10-tackle performance there against the Snyder Panthers. So the sideline Swami has Homestead to win it in this game. As we'll take a look here, Warsaw 8-2, Homestead 9-1. Homestead by 14 points. So, and like you said here, Casey, the Homestead D is better than the Tigers unit. So Braden Hardwick unable to go. However, this one will be tighter than originally thought. And once again, that's without Braden Hardwick, the All-SAC first-team performer.
Yeah, it's that spread started a little higher, but the more I watched of Warsaw last week and the more I like what they do in terms of just eating up the clock with long drives, and they milk that clock beautifully. They've got a big, strong fullback that runs the ball really hard, a very capable quarterback that makes all the right reads. Running triple option football is very, very difficult. But when you run it correctly, it's a thing of beauty. It's equally as difficult to stop. And this will be a daunting task for Homestead because they don't see it. But that being said, I think they have the personnel to get the job done. I think a 2-touchdown margin there is realistic.
Yeah, Homestead will be loading the box. It's going to be important that their safety doesn't get burnt deep over the top on any long touchdowns. Well, in Class 5A, what a matchup here, a rematch of week number 2, Northside, heading over to Dwenger And this is a different Northside team and could be a different Dwenger team heading into the sectional championship. Still, the Swami says Dwenger has enough to get it done here as a 12-point advantage.
Yeah, there's some big question marks out at Dwengerland, of course. Vinny Feekable was injured early in that game against Anderson last week on a 2-point conversion attempt by Anderson. And at the time, it looked like an ankle injury. Then we thought it was a shin. Then we found out it was a high ankle sprain, is my understanding. Those are really, really rough to recover from. And when I saw Vinny leave the game and, throw his helmet down on the bench and his fists, which makes a lot of noise. He's a big, strong kid, as you know. I knew it was a serious injury. It wasn't just a bruise. And so he's got his brace that came in the mail this week. It's doing wonders for him already. He definitely will play in this game. He will not be 100%, but, a 75 or 80% Vinny Feekable is better than most guys anyway. He needs to be on the field. My concern would be is if he can't play on the defensive side, if he doesn't have that burst of speed to penetrate and disrupt, which he's been so good at this year, that would concern me from a Dwenger perspective. And then the other big question mark, of course, Jeff, make no mistake, is Devin Tipman. I'm told he's supposed to play, but again, I spoke with his father or had a text exchange with his father. He's got a follow-up doctor's appointment on Thursday. And I think at that time, they'll make a determination. As we tape this on Wednesday, we don't know yet, but that's a huge question mark. I think if Dwenger does not have Devin Tipman and Vinny Feekable is limited, I think the Saints are in serious trouble. And it's interesting, when I talked to Mike Brevard this week, the two people he singled out on Bishop Dwenger's team as guys that are just difference makers were Vinny Feekable and Devin Tipman. And here they are going into this game, both huge question marks. Devin, of course, had the broken hand. Surgery was successful, but is he ready to go yet? Well, I know Devin well enough that if he is ready, if he can play, he will. Even if it means he has to do some serious begging when it comes to that doctor's appointment. So I expect him to give it a shot, and they have to have it. Dwenger has to have him at middle linebacker. Otherwise, Hassan Lambert is probably going to have some decent numbers. And with the weather being what it is, and Deuce Taylor, my goodness, this seems like it's starting to shape up into a great opportunity for the Northside Legends.
Hassan Lambert, as you mentioned, the senior running back, just seems like he's getting stronger and stronger as the season goes. We've talked about the fact that Coach Brevard has taken him off defense so he can focus on being the running back. He will come into the game to play defensive end and spare Rashaan Bassett if need be. Bassett's another difference maker for Northside that they did not play at defensive end against Dwenger the first time around. So Hassan Lambert, though, congratulations to him. He broke a record that was only 2 years old. Alex Holiday Robinson had set it in that unbelievable game at Bishop Luers when Norman Kanapke nearly set a statewide record for passing yards. You'll remember that one, Casey. That was Coach Brevard's first ever win at Northside.
Yeah, what a fireworks show that was. And another one of those fantastic SAC games. It seems like Luers and or Northside are always involved in those kind of games lately. But what a show that was. Alex Holiday Robinson, his single game record, I believe it was 336 or somewhere in there. Sure didn't last very long. I'm sure he's kicking himself. But I thought it was a bit of a gamble to have Hassan Lambert in the end of that game. Up 3 touchdowns against Northrop a week ago. You just, gosh darn it, you would hate to see a kid turn an ankle or blow out a knee chasing a personal individual record, but it worked out. And it's one of those deals. Hassan Lambert was a man last week. I think he had 240 yards in the first half alone. He put that team on his back, took all that pressure off Deuce Taylor. And now if you're Bishop Dwenger's defensive coordinator, Dan Neppert, you're sitting there scratching your head saying, okay, which Northside team are we going to see? And they're going to have to pick their poison for sure. In week 2, they sent guys from every different angle and really disrupted Deuce Taylor. And Taylor had some nice passing yards, but his completion percentage was nothing like it was in the week 1 victory over Snyder. He looked uncomfortable at times, and the Saints even though that game was close, ended up pulling away, winning by 13 points in the end. So this is a tough one to call because I think both teams are better without question. The question marks, though, for me are the health of the Saints. If they're missing Devin Tipman, especially on defense, because I think they can do enough offensively with the personnel that they have. We forget a lot. We talk a lot about Deuce Taylor and those weapons on the north side offense. Let's not lose sight of Brendan Lytle, the great receivers over at Bishop Dwenger, and those other backs that can do damage running the ball and maybe in the receiving game. So, Brendan Lytle just became BD's all-time passing leader for touchdowns, passing Kevin Mers. He's now the all-time leader in passing yards and passing touchdowns. He's got 48. They went out of their way, the Dwenger coaches, you could tell, to get him that record last week in the first half. I mean, they were throwing almost every down. It was pretty clear Anderson wasn't winning this game, and it was also pretty clear they wanted a running clock in the second half, and they wanted to sit as many guys as possible. So they accomplished all three things, including the record. He had 4 TD tosses in the first half. I'm excited to see that matchup of Bishop Dwenger's passing game against Northside's defense. Have they made the strides that we think they've made on that side of the ball? And then, of course, Bishop Dwenger's vaunted defense against that high-powered Northside offense. This is a matchup made in prep football heaven, if you want my opinion.
Yeah, I hear what you say. You don't want your guys getting hurt going for those records, but you spend so much time training in the off season, practicing during the season. It's such a special thing for both Brendan Lytle and for Hassan Lambert, who set the single-game rushing record for Northside. So hats off to those guys. And honestly, from my standpoint, speaking for myself, hats off for the coaches for knowing the situation and getting their guys those special records.
Yeah, again, hindsight's always 20, of course. If God forbid something happens, then everybody's up in arms and, people are screaming from the stands. But to your point, Jeff, very, very special memories for these kids. It's been such a strange year anyways, and it's nice to see, I think, coaches, when the opportunity's there to promote kids, promote, teams, offenses, defenses, whatever the case may be. And we've had a season full of records up and down all the teams we covered in game night, and not just on offense and not just in the SAC. So it's been a lot of fun, and kudos to Hassan Lambert for, establishing that record. I mean, it'll be fun someday for him to tell his grandkids, oh, by the way, I was single game rushing champion in the year that Deuce Taylor was shattering all the records passing the ball. Pretty special memory for that kid.
Yeah, it's neat to see that well-balanced offense. I think one of the keys in this game is going to be the defensive backfield for Bishop Dwenger. Like you said, in that first game with the Saints winning it against Northside, you can see Bishop Dwenger pulling away in the second half. And Devin Tipman was such a difference maker in that game, whether it was blitzing and getting after Deuce Taylor. Deuce took a lot of big hits in that game. And you talk about Vinny Fiacable, the reason that's a 6 right there is because Vinny Fiacable jumped up and blocked a PAT attempt. So it just shows his versatility. You'll remember he picked up that fumble against Concordia and ran it back for a touchdown. So he's a big athletic presence. He's a Division I athlete. So obviously those two guys really fuel this team. But I'm going to tell you what, Callan Stauffer and Adam Lee and Gavin Groves have been fantastic for Dwenger, and they've answered the call all season long, just like Callan Stauffer did against Carroll in that big matchup with Hunter Mertz.
No doubt about it.
Mason Engler.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Colin Vance, don't forget about him. He's had a nice season as well in the Saints secondary. All 4 of those guys have really improved since week 2. They looked a little out of sorts the first time around, but I thought as the year's gone on, they've all really improved. Adam Lee had a big interception last week in the Saints win. Callan Stauffer has probably had 2 or 3 interceptions that he's made that the officials took away from him. He's had, great numbers anyways, and deservedly earned all conference. This is a very, very talented secondary that I think has really improved And then you factor in, I think, the emergence of a kid like Sam Pisa on the outside. I mean, he's by trade really a defensive back. And they asked him to do some things differently this year as an outside linebacker opposite John Michael Fabini, who gets all the headlines with all the sacks that he's racked up this year. But make no mistake, Sam Pisa has been a real important cog, I think, on that side of the ball in terms of making tackles in space, being able to guard people out of the backfield and in the flat. He's done a really nice job there. This is a great matchup. BD's great defense against Northside's fantastic offense. And again, the Devin Tipman thing right now is, for me, is will he play? If he plays, he'll make plays. He will perform at a high level, even if his right hand falls off from his wrist and they stitch it up and they put some gauze over it, he's still going to make plays. Now, the question is, do the doctors let him play? Do the people that are making that decision say, you can do it, and everybody signs off on it? I think the Saints are in good shape. If he does not play in this game, I'm telling you right now, Jeff, I think the Saints are in serious trouble.
Well, and in that first game, I'll go back to it, but Brendan Lytle and Rocco Sioka were huge difference makers for the Saints. You see here 6 receptions, 127 yards. Lytle was super efficient, 8 of 13, 62% completion percentage, 102 QB rating. Michael Dye for Northside might be matched up man-on-man with Rocco Sioka to try to limit his production.
Yeah, but remember, Henry O'Keefe was not playing yet for the Saints, and he has really given them the ability to stretch the field vertically, especially from the slot, right down the seam. The Saints did not have that in that early season victory over Northside. I think Henry O'Keefe is a home run waiting to happen. He's got great speed, great hands. Sam Campbell, another performer for Bishop Dwenger, number 10, was really not getting many reps at the beginning of the season on that side of the ball. He's been another playmaker for Bishop Dwenger. And then, of course, Jack Tipman, who we just keep waiting to, for his emergence in the red zone specifically, maybe some, pop passes and whatnot. I'd like to see Brody Dixon use the backs a little bit more. I think when they've thrown to the backs on some of those flare routes, more screens against an aggressive team like Northside, it's going to pin their ears back and really try to come after Lytle. That will slow that rush down a little bit. I think Dwenger would be wise to have 2 or 3 screen plays, not wide receiver screens, but true screen plays to their backs in this one. And I think that would make a huge difference, slowing that rush down and then allowing KJ Tipman and the other ball carriers, some room to roam and give those linemen a little bit of a reprieve, because the Legends are going to be coming off the edge, make no mistake.
Yeah, for the Legends, Quaney Rolls really helps to shore things up the middle at defensive tackle, a guy that you really didn't see much in that first matchup. And I can't say enough about what Rashaan Bassett has brought to that Northside team, number 17 from the defensive end position. He's only a sophomore, but he looks physically like a senior. Some extra motivation here for the Legends. Possibly the last time they won a sectional championship was in 1990. And obviously, if you look at Dwenger, they're just riddled with sectional championships, 26 in total for the Saints. And if I remember correctly, that's one behind Snyder's 27. So Bishop Dwenger could tie Snyder for the most sectional championships in the conference. But for Northside, this might be their best year in a sectional with Dwenger to get that done.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it doesn't seem like 30 years. You feel like they should have had a couple since then with some of the good coaches they've had and all the talent they've had. But again, oftentimes they've been going up against Snyder and now Bishop Dwenger, and it's been hard to get out of the sectional with those two staples winning year after year after year. It's interesting you have that graphic up south side. This year reminds me a little bit going back to I think it was the 2005 year where Southside got beat by Bishop Dwenger during the regular season and then came back and won in the postseason. Matt Land was the coach then of the Archers, and this in some strange way reminds me of that season where Dwenger appears to be the better team on paper. They won in the regular season, but they've got that grudge match against a very athletic, talented, tough team. And then, of course, the Saints, they come in and they in the postseason. It's so difficult to beat somebody twice. And it sure feels like Northside's going to be in this game. And again, if the personnel is not there for Bishop Dwenger, I would change my pick for sure. That spread would drop from 12 down to single digits, maybe even a field goal or less, if not outright taking Northside to win this game.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Tough to beat the Saints, though, obviously. Over in Class 3A, shout out to Concordia. Really getting it done on the road without their coach, Tim Manigal. A lot of people believe that he was coaching from a bucket truck somewhere hoisted high. But Concordia winning it 24-0. In Class 3, that defense is elite, Casey. They are absolutely awesome. A great defensive backfield, great linebacker core with a strong sophomore and James Rusher. And they're going to take on Norwell. And this Norwell team has just been getting better and better ever since that 17-0 loss against Leo earlier in the year. Norwell went to Mechaniqua and just dominated 49-7. So this is going to be a fun matchup over there at Zollner Stadium. And we'll see. The Swami is actually going to pick Concordia in this one by 4.
Yeah, and I think another great matchup that could go either way clearly. I think right now I just give a slight edge to the Cadets because I think the strength of schedule is a little bit in their favor. I think last week offensively they had probably their best performance in a few weeks. It wasn't perfect by any means, but they did move chains. They were able to get Amir Drew going, which is so important. You know, they've got that single back spread formation where they've got 4 really, really dynamic receivers, Speckard, Grossman, Parnan, and who am I forgetting? Oh, Van Landingham. And then don't forget about Cam Johnson. He's not even listed as a starter offensively. He may be their best offensive player. So the weapons are there. Now, can they avoid turnovers and penalties? Can they finish drives? Can they don't have to rely simply on every big play. Do they need big plays? Absolutely. But they need to finish drives. They need to avoid the turnover bug, which has plagued them the last 2 years, move the ball up and down the field, 7, 8, 9, 10 play drives, and get touchdowns in the red zone. And if they do that, I think they'll be in good shape, especially playing this game at home. But Norwell is a dangerous, dangerous team. I mean, you don't put together the kind of season that they've put together if they're not doing something right. I love what Eli Riley does as their quarterback, that the running back Max Ringer runs really hard. They're physical in the trenches. This is in the trenches. They're probably as physical as most teams in the SAC. And so that's where, from a matchup standpoint, I think Norwell's going to be just fine. Coach Josh Gerber is a former Knight himself. He understands the history at Norwell and what a proud tradition they once had. He's brought that back in such a short time. And this is a fantastic game. I do give Concordia a slight edge playing at home, playing on that beautiful new turf. And not having to go down to ASEAN and play in the courtyard, which sometimes can feel like you're going to a morgue if you're a visiting team. So, but another great matchup, one that I'll be definitely tuning into and be curious to see how Concordia handles the early part of the game in terms of the physical presence by Norwell, especially their defensive trenches. They're very, very good up front, and Concordia's got all their guys back. Big Bubba Craig's back, starting 2 sophomores on the same side of the line. It'll be interesting to see, again, how Concordia handles that physicality from Norwell. But they've got the skill guys to take care of business. And I'd like to see them open up things a little earlier, throw the ball much sooner, and then turn to Amir Drew to kind of salt the game away instead of trying to pound, and then they find themselves in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6 situations that are clearly passing downs. And they just have not connected enough 3rd downs, in my opinion, this year to be effective offensively.
You know, you look at the success the SAC has had against the NEA early on in these playoffs. Do you feel like that's a big contributing factor to your pick here with Concordia winning it by 4?
Definitely. That's exactly why I'm going with Concordia. I think, again, on paper, if you look at the stats and you analyze the numbers, it'd be hard to pick against Norwell, typically, most years. But because of some of those other matchups that we've seen, the strength of schedule, the fact that Concordia's got most of their guys back now. I mean, of all the schools in the area that have been, certainly in the county, that have been most affected by COVID quarantine situations, from early season missing Brandon Davis, the starting quarterback, for a couple games, to last week missing their head coach, for crying out loud. The Concordia cadets have really had to toggle personnel on both sides of the lineup. I think right now they're feeling really good about their personnel. Norwell, conversely, is in good shape as well. So it's not like the Knights are, limping into this thing. So that's good to see. Both teams should be near 100% in terms of health and personnel. I think it makes for a great matchup, and I love these SAC NE8 matchups. I think they're great for Northeast Indiana football, and but I have to give the cadets a slight edge because of strength of schedule.
Yeah, Amir Drew is certainly built for the postseason. He's as big a running back as we have in the SAC. He's been a starter for 3 years. But on the turf here with this nice weather, be interesting to see if these receivers can get going under Brandon Davis. Obviously, Brandon Davis has the ability to put up big numbers, but it just seems like all season long, something's kind of been missing. He missed those 2 games early on this season. And if you look at Brandon Davis, his season numbers, his high passing was against Northside, and that was 218 yards. And they threw the ball 31 times. He was 12 of 31. So the completion percentage was down at 39%. But still, Brandon Davis, throughout his career, he can put up 300 yards passing pretty easy.
Yeah, he can. I want to see their offense, the offensive coaches over there, Coach Manigault in particular, open things up just a little bit more and pass first to set up the run. I just feel like they put a ton of pressure on that kid and that passing game to come up with a completion when everybody in the stadium knows they're throwing the ball. So you go 4 wide pretty much every down. Why not open up and throw more early? The weather's going to be cooperative. You're on your home field. You've got all those weapons. 3 of them are seniors. A kid like Tyler Grossman could have a breakout game tonight. A kid like Luke Speckard could have a breakout game tonight. Scotty Van Landingham, all those guys, Cam Johnson. Too many weapons on that side of the ball, I think, to play slow football and play right into Norwell's hands. I think you have to use your advantage with your athletes, open it up, spray it around, and then use Amir Drew late in the game, again, to milk the clock and put the game on ice when you're up maybe a score or 2. That's, for my money, how I would handle it. Coach Manigault's won a heck of a lot more football games and state championships than I have, of course. But if I was a Concordia fan and I was rooting for the cadets in this game, that's what I would want to see early. The weather's going to be beautiful. You've got the personnel. You're playing at home. Got all these seniors. Open it up, attack, and then milk the game in the second half with Amir Drew.
Yeah, and that defense will certainly keep them in this game no matter what happens. They are
no doubt
awesome.
And that's the thing. Even with some of those mistakes, the defense, to your point, Jeff, has kept them in games. They may have not won those games, but they were always in most of those games, even when they had a short field to contend with. So I totally agree. You've got a great defense with a lot of guys making big plays, a superb secondary. I would take some chances early on. I would open things up. I would even consider going no huddle and trying to just change tempo, see if we can't get some rhythm going offensively, because they've got so many playmakers on that side of the ball that just have not emerged. And if this team is going to make a run and get by a team like, let's say, Mishawaka Marion, in the weeks ahead, let alone Norwell, they've got to do more offensively. They've been so vanilla, so pedestrian on offense, but they got the personnel. And I think this is the week that we see it. Again, weather's going to be perfect. I say, cadets, go for it. Open it up. Let your athletes get out in space, take some shots downfield, and not rely on run, pass, every single possession. And then let Amir Drew do his thing when the game's in the balance and you're up by a score or 2, instead of, early in the game where you play right into Norwell's hands, and before you know it, it's the third quarter and you've only had 3 or 4 possessions.
Yeah, I thought this game was really interesting here. The 14-7 loss in overtime to Northside. Concordia marches down the field, basically two plays with Cam Johnson. Like you said, he's a super playmaker. He rattled off two catches of like 30 or more yards. They score the tying touchdown. Their defense holds tight. I believe Northside missed a field goal. They get the ball back at their own, let's say, 30, 35-yard line with a minute and a half left, and they decided to sit on it and go into overtime. So
I agree.
I thought that was really interesting in that game that the coaching staff decided not to go for a win, not to figure out a way of getting the ball to either Scotty Van Landingham, who was big in that game, or to Cam Johnson, who, like you said, he really just seems like one of the best athletes in the conference.
Yeah, I think I didn't have that conversation with Coach Manigail, but my gut tells me, remember, Jeff, they were missing so many guys in that game. They were
Offensive line.
shorthanded to begin with. Maybe they felt like, okay, we don't want – and they've had a propensity for turnovers. Make no mistake, the last 2 years. Maybe they said, we don't want to give Northside a short field and clock. Let's get this thing to overtime and see if we can't make enough good decisions in overtime to find victory there. That's one of those coin flip situations. You know, if it works out, everybody in the stands is sitting there going, great call, coach. If it doesn't, and the other team gets an opportunity to score, and they do inside a minute, let's say, then everybody's second guessing it. So that's a tough one. I mean, I remember watching that, and I had the same thought, like, wow, you got Cam Johnson, and Scotty Van Landingham was having a tremendous game. You know, maybe even a bootleg with Brandon Davis, get him out in space, a quarterback draw, right? Where you spread everybody out and you run go routes and you see if you can't get him 20 or 25 yards up the middle. And then you take a shot or two towards the end zone. But again, hindsight's always 20/20. It's always fun to second guess.
Well, Casey, in that situation, I've always been told in overtime, you go with the more heralded, the more accomplished quarterback usually wins you the game in overtime. So if you have to flip a coin, that can be a deciding factor for you.
Sure.
Now, I need
totally
to go
agree.
back. I need to go back to Class 4A. Hello, this is going to be a game. There's some big-time players in this one. East Noble at Leo. Leo shut them out the first time around, but East Noble did not even have their best player in Rowan Zalman. Casey, I've seen this guy play. Rowan Zalman's a beast. He's a safety at 6'5", and he's super athletic. He plays wide receiver for him. They've settled into Cole Shupak as their quarterback. Cole Shupak is tough. He punts the ball. He plays linebacker. He can run out of the Wildcat, and now he's throwing a little bit better for East Noble. Now, when you look at Leo, Caden Miller, ever since that high ankle sprain, you talked about Vinny Fiacable and that high ankle sprain, it's no joke. I mean, even if it takes you 25% out of your athletic ability, sometimes you're just not the same player because we're in the sectional championship game. All these guys can play. So Leo, Caden Miller is not going to be 100%. They do have a guy returning. And Casey, how much do you love this game?
I love it a lot. I do not think it's a 24-point game at all. I think this is a four-quarter game that comes down to one of the last possessions of the game. To your point, East Noble is a different team with Rowan Zolman on both sides of the ball. Just a fantastic athlete who makes plays on the ball. Not that Leo's had a lot of success throwing it. I think he's really impactful offensively, giving Cole Shupak that home run threat, that jump ball threat in the red zone. And again, Shupak been tremendous executing that offense, and he's improved all year long. I think this is a fantastic matchup. You can see there the Swamis taking East Noble in an upset special. I mean, you lose by 24 points, right? If you play that team a second time and you beat them, that's an upset special. I think it happens, though. I think it's a great game. I think, you know, the fact that DJ Allen, who did not play in this matchup the first time around, nor Mason Sharon. Remember, Mason Sharon is a fantastic player who is a defensive end and a running back who's big, strong kid. He's been licking his chops all year long, Jeff, to play football. And finally, it is here in the sectional championship. He will be a difference maker because of Caden Miller not being at 100%. he gives them a little bit of an edge, I think, in terms of their running game that we didn't think they had just a few short weeks ago. And then there's a transfer from Carroll by the name of John Moore. He had some decent rushing stats last week. This is a kid that is, again, a bigger back like Mason Sharon. So he's a totally different runner, but he gives you some of that power that you need in between the tackles in a tough game. So I think there's so many subplots here. It's so much fun. I mean, Kanan Carrico and Nolan Rhodes are back for East Noble this week. They did not play last week. Offensive guard Easton Brown is returning for East Noble after coming back from an injury. I think this game's won with special teams. And here's what I've got for you, Jeff. It's my understanding that Carson McCauley, the fantastic kicker and punter, is not going to play in this game. If he does not play, that dramatically affects Leo's kicking game. Make no mistake, that's where they've won. I think he arguably could be the MVP of that team. He's been that good, especially punting and kickoffs, but especially punting. On the flip side, Christian Sanchez kicked a school record 47-yard field goal. It's hard to believe that we might actually be looking at this game right now and say, okay, who's got an advantage right now in terms of the kicking game? It might be East Noble. We never would have said that a week ago. So it's a fantastic matchup. A lot of guys that are factoring in. I can't wait for this one. I think this is a game that will go down to the end, and it literally could be which team makes that big mistake or that big play, in special teams or offensively, whatever the case may be, late in the game. I fully expect this to go down to the wire, and I'm super pumped.
Yeah, and Cole Shupak, doing all that he does, he's an outstanding punter for East Noble. He had 2 inside the 20 last game against DeKalb. I mean, a shout out to the Barons. They came on strong towards the end of the season. They had games where they looked like a serious contender.
Yeah, you talk about flipping your season around. I mean, you looked at what they did in week, 1 or whatever against Angola, where they just got run off the field, 55-18. There it is, 55-18, and then they come back and win in the sectional 7-0. How often do you see a reversal of fortune like that, Jeff? Never. I mean, that seldom happens. So kudos to Coach Wilcox up there in his first year. The Barons, wow, they did not quit, and they really turned things on at the end. East Noble defense is there. We knew it would be. Leo's defense is there. We haven't spoken yet or talked yet about Rylan Crawford for Leo. Do they have a trick up their sleeve in terms of Rylan Crawford? We saw that reverse a couple weeks ago that was fantastic down in the red zone. Will we see another wrinkle there to get him more touches? They've got to find a way to get him the ball. If they just try to play, line it up and smash mouth football, I think East Noble matches up really well with them. So the 2 fumbles, remember, in that game earlier in the year at Leo for East Noble totally changed the complexion of that game. I don't think that the Knights ever recovered. They got down on themselves a little bit. Again, they didn't have Rowan Zolman. They didn't have that explosive player that they were looking for offensively yet. I mean, I know Coach Amsted's talked about that after that game, saying we need more explosiveness offensively. Rowan gives them that, along with a couple of their other guys that are really starting to play with a lot of confidence. This is a fantastic matchup that can go either way. But for my money, I like East Noble in a close one because I feel like Leo's been living dangerously. I mean, they are just hanging on by a thread, and they've been so one-dimensional that you wonder if that comes back to bite them this week. And again, weather's going to be beautiful. We're a throwing team or a team that's willing to throw it a little bit more. You have to give them maybe a little bit of an edge.
Yeah, we'll see Jackson Barber with just 2 attempts there against Northwood. So John Moore, will keep an eye out for Mason Sharon in that rushing attack. Dallin Wirtz led the team last week, 10 carries, 62 yards, averaging 6.2 with a touchdown. Barber also had a touchdown. Jackson's really good at carrying out those fakes and just making the offense just so deceiving. I mean, sometimes it's so hard to tell who has the ball over there at Leo. But when you look at this game, you have some big-time players, guys that you're going to see playing at the next level. When you look at Chris Hood, the offensive tackle at East Noble, Rowan Zalman, Rylan Crawford, Landon Livingston. I mean, as far as star power is concerned, this might be one of the biggest games in Northern Indiana in the state this week.
Yeah, no doubt about it. DJ Allen for Leo is another kid that I think will be playing at the next level. You've got Cole Schutbach and Van Gorder, Jacob Van Gorder, two, really, really good high school football players that I think will have an opportunity to play at the next level. So you're right, Jeff. This is a fun matchup. It seems like a distant memory, but East Noble did play in the state finals a year ago. It's funny how we forget, and everybody's about, what have you done for me lately? Well, they're 8-3 and playing really, really solid football, especially defensively. It's not going to be cold and rainy. This is, I think, a team that is so much better than they were at the beginning of the year in all three phases. And Leo's better too, but they just, for my money, they have not developed that passing game enough for me to be real confident that Leo's going to run away with this game. I do not see a 24-point victory for the Lions. I don't think it's going to happen. But that being said, it is 2020, and anything could bounce either direction, and none of us should be surprised.
Yeah, Rylan Crawford's going to have to pay attention to Rowan Zalman. Keep an eye out on Nick Munson. He's a fantastic wide receiver as well for East Noble. Maybe he might be a difference maker for Cole Schutbach in that passing game for the Knights. So
yeah,
last year was East Noble handing Leo their only 2 losses. One of those was in the sectional championship game.
Yeah, that's right. At the beginning, we kind of looked and thought this was a gauntlet of a sectional. And we thought Leo had the tougher trek to come out victorious with 3 real toughies. But by the same token, with the emergence of DeKalb, East Noble hasn't had a cakewalk either. So they're both battle tested. And it's interesting. Remember early in the year, Jeff, where these two teams had the opportunity to maybe take a Friday night off, lick their wounds, so to speak, and maybe work on some things or just take a breather. And instead they chose, remember, East Noble to play Penn and Leo to play Mooresville early in the season. And we said at the time, kudos to these coaching staffs, kudos to the people making these decisions, even though it didn't necessarily work out in their favor, right? They both ended up losing those games. But I remember saying at the time, and you agreed, Jeff, this will pay dividends down the road. And here we are in the sectional finals. Both these teams, I think, benefited from that decision. And here they are. One of them is going to be playing in a regional.
Carson McCauley is going to be a huge loss, no doubt about it. Caden Miller, hopefully those 2 guys find a way to get on the field and be 100%. If they are not on the field, I got to agree with you. I don't know another punter that means more to his team than Carson McCauley means to Leo. And I don't know if you've ever seen Carson McCauley. That kid is yoked up. I mean,
yeah.
He's a big, strong kid. I got to imagine that they got –
or a linebacker. Yeah.
Yeah, and I got to imagine they got some fakes in there for him too, but he's as consistent a football player as I've seen all year.
Again, there's about, if you look back through the games, we could probably single out or circle 3 or 4 games that Leo ended up winning where it'd be hard pressed to not give him serious MVP consideration in those wins. I mean, he's been that good of a difference maker. Most high school punters do not influence their teams in a positive manner the way Carson McCauley has this year. So I think he's an all-state punter. He's been fantastic. This is a tough situation if he's not able to play. It sounds like he's not able to play. And I think I don't know what their backup situation is. For all we know, they've got a kid waiting in the wings that's the second best punter in the area. And if that's the case, then we're going to sit there and shrug our shoulders and say, man, they know how to groom him out in Leo Cedarville. But I think it's a huge loss. Caden Miller, we've already talked about his ankle. He has not been the same kid since midway through the season. So even if he's not 100% with the addition of the other 2 kids that we already talked about, especially Mason Sharon, I know there's probably going to be some rust that's going to be needed to be knocked off for Mason Sharon. But he's too good a football player not to impact this game. I think he gets a lot of reps on both sides.
All I know is when they met in the first season, there was a lot of hard hitting going on. One of the hardest hitting, most physical games I saw all season long.
Definitely. And it's going to be physical again this week. Both these teams are known for their defense, for their physicality. Both coaches love to win games with their physical presence in the trenches. And I know both these coaches really respect one another, but they're both really competitive. This is a fantastic matchup, and I can't wait for it.
Well, finally, Casey, Class 3A, or excuse me, Class 2A. Bishop Luers has been getting it done in the postseason. They knocked off an undefeated Fairfield team 49-12. Carson Clark was amazing. Ramon Anderson, Brody Glenn, Sir Hale, and Eastside got another big victory, 42-0. This is an outstanding game at Luers Field.
It is, and that's why, initially I was leaning towards Bishop Luers because of playing this game at Venerable Luers Field. You just never know about some of these schools, these outside the county schools, if they would get intimidated coming to a venue like Bishop Luers. Last year, this game, of course, was played up at Butler, and Eastside was victorious by a touchdown. There was that interception late in the game, I believe, in the third quarter. I believe that Eastside, I think, returned for a touchdown, tied the score up, and the momentum just totally changed. Both these teams, I think, are better this year. Eastside won the sectional last year, and Coach Todd Mason had a tremendous run. But I think this team's better. They have so many guys coming back on both sides of the ball. I think they have 8 guys, Jeff, that played on offense last year against Bishop Luers and 6 on defense. And not all of them are two-way guys. So for a smaller school, I think there's 2 or 3 that play on both sides. They do a pretty good job of 2 platooning. Again, that you just brought up the schedule against Concord. That's their lone loss. We talked a little bit ago about the last game in 4A, those 2 teams scheduling somebody in absence of a regular season opponent because of the COVID situation. Here we have another example of Eastside. Yeah, they could have had dreams of having a perfect season, staying undefeated. Instead, they play a 5A foe like Concord that's much bigger, has more athletes, and they go up there and give them a run for their money. And they were in that game until the last 2 or 3 minutes of the contest and fell by 1 score. So Eastside's not going to go down, I don't think, to Bishop Luers and be intimidated. I think, if nothing else, I think Coach Mason knew that when he scheduled that game and he saw an opportunity to fill a vacancy and go play a bigger, more athletic school with more tradition. I think it's the largest school they've ever played in their school history, I heard, which is shocking. So they knew they were going into a bit of a lion's den, but they did it anyways for this opportunity, Jeff. So they could say, hey, we went to Concord. Yeah, Concord's not going to win a state championship, but this is still a very athletic, talented team that's got some tradition. We're playing at their place. They're going to be big and physical and deep, and they're going to have athletes, just like Bishop Luers does. So on the other side of this, though, the argument is, or the thought is, strength of schedule. We already talked about it with Norwell and Concordia. I still think, Bishop Luers is, by most experts, probably should be favored to win this game. Do they have more athletes? Absolutely. Sir Hale is injured and he's out, and that's a tough loss for Bishop Luers. But again, they got Ramon Anderson back last week. So not as big a loss as that would have been if Ramon had still been out. The line on both sides of the ball is playing much better for Bishop Luers. Finally, some continuity on the offensive line. Big George Boudet, Ben Rectanis, what a great football name he has at center, the large beast. This is a team that's believing in themselves. The Bishop Luers football, they make hay in the postseason with all those state championships. It's been a while, but they're surging right now. And this is a team that's clicking on all cylinders. And my goodness, Carson Clark, what a game he had last week. 11 completions in a row, which I think either set a record or was second most ever, passing Kyle Lindsay, his head coach. Carson Clark is really, really come into his own. He struggled a little bit early in the season with some misreads, some poor decisions. Now he's been so efficient. We talked all year long about Brody Glenn, what a playmaker he is. He's healthy. You've got Ramon Anderson now coming out of the backfield, another weapon. Rashaan Bassett at the slot, another home run just waiting to happen. They've got all the parts there, make no mistake, to score a lot of points. The defense will be the key. can they get off the field, force some turnovers, or make Laban Davis, the quarterback out at Eastside, a little bit uncomfortable? He's their guy that makes that offense go for Eastside. If Laban Davis, has 250 to 300 combined passing rushing yards, Eastside's going to be in a great position to win this game late. And I think it comes down, like a few of these other contests, to the fourth quarter.
Yeah, you look at both of these teams, and they're absolutely dominating in the postseason. You look at it, 82-7 combined, with wins over Bluffton and Prairie Heights. For Bishop Luers, Whitco 56-7 and 49-12. This is shaping up to be an outstanding sectional championship game. And honestly, it's like, what is the difference maker in this one? Obviously, Sir Hale was really one of the top all-around players in the SAC this year, a guy that could just absolutely do everything for Bishop Luers. I think that's going to be a big loss for the Knights. But we just mentioned it, Rashaan Bassett had another interception. He's becoming, a standout defensive back for him. What do you truly think is going to be the difference in this matchup? When we look at the Sideline Swami's prediction, he's got Eastside by 3.
Well, I mean, Eastside cannot give up the big play. And Luers, they've got big play athletes. Menson and Glenn are the two guys I know that Coach Mason's probably most worried about. You throw in Johnny Sewell, the senior, who's really had a nice late season run here for the Knights. Jaden Hill, sophomore tight end, could be utilized, especially in the seam and maybe in some little passes over the middle as those defenders put a little more emphasis on the perimeter. So I don't know. I think Eastside's very physical. This is a seasoned team. You've got a lot of guys on defense like Dax Holman and Lane Kleckner, Lane Burns, that are really, really good high school football players, good tacklers in space. They don't see the speed that Bishop Luers possesses, nor that Bishop Luers sees week in and week out in the SAC. So that could be scary for Eastside. I do think both teams are better. If you talk to Kyle Lindsay, the head coach at Bishop Luers, he says night and day better. And he did not spell night with a K when he sent me that email. But they are much better. He thought they were more physical. He thinks they're faster. And he said their QB play and their offensive line is drastically better. So, again, I think for most people, Bishop Luers probably should be favored here. I think if Eastside is victorious, it should be considered a mild upset because of strength of schedule. But there's just something about this Eastside team. Did I say East Noble? I meant Eastside. There's something about this Eastside team that I like. They seem to be on a mission. They want to make more noise and go past the regional round this year. And I think Coach Mason's got a team that is physical in the trenches. They tackle really well in space, and he's got a quarterback that he really believes in, that he's going to put a lot of responsibility on his shoulders to make decisions and make plays when the Blazers need a first down on third or fourth down, or certainly a big play in the red zone. So another one that should come down to the wire. I think it could go either way. If one team's going to blow out the other, I think it's Luers blowing out Eastside because of the speed difference and the personnel that they have, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But for my money, I'm going to go with the Blazers and by a field goal, and I think it's going to be another one to watch.
Yeah, you look at Laban Davis and his numbers this year, 24 touchdowns passing, just 5 INTs, 14 rushing touchdowns. When I saw Northridge play, and their quarterback was a dual threat quarterback, it was one of the more exciting QB performances that I've seen all year long. And I think you're going to see that at Luers Field with Laban Davis, just how much he means to that Eastside offense.
Yeah, he's definitely the guy that makes them go. Would not be surprised if we saw Lane Burns a little bit more on offense. He hasn't done a ton the second half of the year. They've been letting him play a little bit more defense at I believe at safety. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some personnel changes there offensively for Eastside to give Davis a couple more weapons to at his disposal. But they put so much on him, and he can handle it. I mean, his numbers back it up. But Luers is much better. If they'd played this game, let's say in week 2 or 3 or 4, Jeff, I think Eastside wins by 3 touchdowns. I think Lures has improved that much, and it could go either way. So it's going to be a great one. I'm looking forward to it, and it'll probably come down to a couple key turnovers and special teams like it always does.
Well, that just about does it. Looking at some of your Class 1A games, Madison Grant at South Adams. You got South Adams by 45, and Adams Central taking on Southwood. What a fun game that is. You know, Southwood didn't even know if their season would continue a week ago, and you got Adams Central by 1 in that one.
Yeah, and I think that's an upset too. I think most people will have Southwood winning. The Knights have strung together a beautiful season. These are 2 really good Class 1A programs that are both kind of licking their chops to play South Adams. And if I'm thinking correctly, they wouldn't play next week. I think it wouldn't be till semi-state, which I'm not sure how South Adams and Adams Central, being 6 or 8 miles apart in Class 1A, would not be playing, I believe, until semi-state, if my memory serves me correctly. So, great matchup again. We've got talent. We've got teams from 1A all the way up to 6A that it would be really cool to see them all advance, at least have some opportunities there to see if we can't squeak some teams through to semi-state next week.
Yeah, it looks like South Adams, Madison Grant will take on the winner of Adams Central and Southwood there.
I was wrong. Okay, I was wrong. Okay. I'm thinking about somebody else, but still, I think maybe just the notion that they're not in the same sectional when there's, they're playing teams that are, an hour away seems kind of foreign to me. But great matchup there. I think South Adams wins easily. That they're going to put up big numbers tonight. Their quarterback, James Arnold, needs just 3 touchdowns to hit the century mark, 100 career touchdown passes. That's pretty remarkable for a high school kid.
Yeah, and I just saw he got offered by Lake Erie College, which is the same college that offered Devin Tipman and Dre Wright.
Yeah, somebody's paying attention over at Lake Erie, right? Good for them.
Yeah, somebody wants to win some football games over there at Lake Erie College. So Concordia and Norwell, they'll play the winner of Brebeuf, and I believe that's Bishop Chatard. So that'll be a good one to look out for. Over here, East Noble Leo plays the winner of Marion and Delta. So we saw Marion squeak past Southside. Delta with a pretty big win against Wayne. I got to believe the winner of this game would be a favorite against Marion or Delta.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. I think when I was referencing earlier, it might have been in 6A, maybe Carmel or something. There's been some alignment changes where some of the teams that we normally would see in the regional level are now possibly semi-state or even state finals. They've moved some things around with the alignments.
Yeah, Carmel's always been in the north, but due to success factor, here's Westfield now, 6A. They're taking on Fisher, so the winner of that game could possibly host Homestead. And who knows, is this the year Homestead gets that regional title?
Yeah, I mean, things are shaping up nicely for them. Again, without Braden Hardwick, that could be difficult for the Spartans, but they've had a great year, and now they just have to get by a Warsaw team that is not fun to play, I'm sure, because you just don't see that kind of offense.
And then looking at Northside and Bishop Dwenger, the winner will play Zionsville. Your heart just aches for McCutcheon. That's just tough to see.
Yeah, it seems every week now there's 1 or 2 casualties that they don't get to move on, and that's disappointing. But I think it is what it is. I mean, it's 2020, and unfortunately, you feel for those programs and those kids that have to shut it down prematurely. But no sense beating a dead horse. You got to move on. But again, Zionsville, this is not a great Zionsville team, but definitely very, very capable. And I think, did you say that game, if Dwenger was victorious, would be down at Zionsville, and Northside would host?
Is that right? I'm not 100% sure. I'm assuming it would be at Zionsville, but some of the times the bottom team doesn't host, so they're the bottom team in the bracket.
Okay. I think if all things are equal this year, my understanding is they flipped it. It used to be the top team on the bracket would be the home team if all things were equal in terms of home and away games to a certain point in the tournament. I believe now they flipped it so it's the bottom team in the bracket this year will be the home team. So if that's the case, I think, yeah, they would probably be down at Zionsville.
And can we talk about Bishop Dwenger and success points? So they won state 2 years ago. They get 4 points for that. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
And then they went to
It's
semi-state last year, but did not win that. So that's 2 points. So they're at 6 right now. I'm just wondering if they were to win state this year, they'd be back to 6 points. Would they be moving to 6A?
that's a good question. I think so. I had a conversation with a friend about this just the other day, and I have not verified it, but I think so. And that would be a daunting task, I think, for a couple of years, for Bishop Dwenger football. You'd almost feel bad for some of those sophomores and juniors that are going to be juniors and seniors. So before we check out, I just want to throw out some prayers and some good vibes. There's a young man over at Bishop Dwenger who is struggling right now. I don't know any of the details other than it's an emergency, dire situation. So if folks are out there that are spiritual and want to offer up some prayers for him, I know it would mean a lot to him and his family.
Absolutely. So prayers to the young man at Bishop Dwenger, and really prayers for everybody throughout the Fort Wayne community and beyond, struggling through these tough times. And once again, we've been saying it all year, but hats off to all of the trainers, coaches, parents, and most specifically the players. They talk about it in the NFL too, and in college, what it takes to kind of separate yourself from the groupings to where you can go throughout the season and keep your team on the field. And you've seen it throughout the state where teams have had to forfeit games and even forfeit postseason chances of success. So keep it up. I think Fort Wayne's been doing a phenomenal job. And this season has really been a special season. And just congratulations to all the players, especially the seniors. And just hoping everybody gets to finish strong. So really looking forward to Northside at Dwenger is where I'll be on Friday night. And wow, if Devin Tipman and Vinny Fia can be out there, you want teams at their best for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And to echo what you said, kudos to everybody involved for, finding a way, plowing ahead. It's been a very, very challenging year for a lot of reasons. And it's been so rewarding to see this season play out the way it has locally. We've had one great story individually and collectively all year long. And it's just been such a joy to be a small part of it. And thank you again for all that you do at Summit City Sports. And it's, where there's more football to be played. Let's not be Debbie Downer yet, right? And unplug anything. Let's just keep going, man. Cause I think we've got some teams that can make some noise the next few weeks. And it's going to be another great Friday night of football, no doubt.
Yeah, we've had some teams that have already made a bunch of noise, and I agree with you. I think we can do something here heading into Week 13 next week. So this will be 3 months of Indiana high school football this Friday. A lot of big matchups in the area. Homestead Media will have the Homestead Warsaw game. Never Ends Productions will have the Bishop Lures game. We'll be at Leo. We'll be at Bishop Dwenger and at Concordia. So make sure to tune in, support your local teams. And as always, I'm Jeff Mahoney, and that was Casey O'Boyle. He's got the ear of the sideline Swami. So check out his picks this week on Twitter. Thanks for joining us, everyone.